and in a lot of pain. And she was alcoholic, and she was suicidal.
There was not a lot of communication, but I saw her as, heard and saw her get beaten by my dad.
When she was in a tantrum, then it would just come out very, in a rage. She would be throwing things and screaming and flailing and wanting and trying to hit you and saying you're a bastard and I wish you were never born and why can't you be like your brother and what's the matter with you, and then I would try to say something. She would say, shut up, I don't want to hear it, you're stupid, I hate you. He was rough with the swimming. Sometimes he would just yank me out of the water by my hair and he would shake you. We would go under and I would fight him to get air. It's just part of his philosophy. If I started becoming friendly with these other players, I wouldn't be competitive. The guy behind the counter was very friendly. Basically, he sneaked me in a bag, some pastries and cookies and stuff. I took it out when my dad wasn't looking. He found them on me outside the store. I was eating them. He just grabbed them out of my hand, and he just grabbed me by the neck. He just punched me in the stomach. And he would fondle me. He used objects. I just told him that I didn't want to do this, and that it hurt me. And he said that he didn't mean to hurt me. And he loved me.
He was saying I was going to have to live at home as well as living at college. Didn't expect that. I hated the idea. I was thinking of just killing myself.
He would say that I ruined her life, that she had not wanted to get pregnant, that my dad gave her an ultimatum, either you leave or you stay home with my son. So she chose to stay home, and essentially her life was pretty much ruined from that point
on. Thursday, August 17th, 1989, allegedly Lyle confronted Jose about the sexual abuse going on with his brother, and in doing so, found out that Kitty already knew about the abuse. On Friday, August 18th, Eric and Lyle went down to San Diego to a Big Five sporting goods store and bought shotguns. The next day, Jose came back from a business trip and took Kitty and the boys shark fishing in Marina del Rey. The captain as well as the boys later claimed that the trip was very weird. As they set sail, the boys went up to the bow of the boat, and the parents sat inside to the back of the boat. The family didn't participate in fishing or converse with each other. In the evening on Sunday, August 20th, 1989, at 722 North Elm Drive, in Beverly Hills, an argument was allegedly underway between Lyle and Kitty in the foyer. Lyle wanted to go out for the night, and Kitty wanted him to stay home. This is when Jose came out of the den and told Kitty to shut up. He then told Lyle he wasn't going out and told Eric to go to his room. Jose then allegedly had a physical altercation with Lyle before going back to the family room to finish watching a movie with Kitty. Lyle allegedly then ran upstairs and told Eric that their parents were going to kill them. Just after 10 p.m., shots rang out. Lyle and Eric had burst into the den and fired their shotguns with more than a dozen shots hitting and killing their parents. Jose was shot 6 times, with fatal shots in the back of the head at close range. Kitty had been on the ground, slowly crawling and crying before Lyle ran to his car to reload, and then delivering the fatal shot to her face. Kitty was shot 10 times in total. Eric and Lyle waited for the wailing of the sirens, because they were sure that someone had to hear the gunfire. But when no one came, Eric and Lyle picked up the shotgun shells and left. They drove up to Mulholland Drive, pulled over, and hid the guns in the bushes. When the boys arrived back home, they were shocked that all was silent. Lyle called 911 and claimed that someone had killed their parents while they were away.
Yes, police. What's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem? Someone killed my parents. Pardon me? What? Who? Are they still there? Yeah. The people... No. Were they shot? Yes, man, were they shot? Yes. They were shot? Yes. 102, 722 North Elm. What happened? Please, further. Other units responding. Is the person still there?
What happened? We have units around. What happened? Who shot who?
I don't hear anything. I just came home.
You came home and found who shot?
Mom and Dad. You know if they're still in the house, the people that did the shooting. Get away from them.
Okay, hang on. Let me talk to Eric. Who is the person that was shot?
My mom and my dad.
Your mom and dad?
My mom and my dad.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay, we're on our way over there with an ambulance.
Okay, I gotta go.
Okay.
Oh.
Hello, this is police department.
Yes.
Okay, I want you to come outside. Okay, just come out the front door and
Everything, my brother.
Eric and Lyle were ordered from the front door to the driveway. They were made to lie down face first and were searched. When first responders rushed in the door, it was eerily silent. Straight ahead in the back of the foyer was the family room. In the family room, the television was on. Dressed in white, Kitty was on all fours on the floor. Her face was unrecognizable. Jose was sitting on the couch, slumped back, with a shotgun blast to the back of his head and 4 to his body. Blood was everywhere, and brain matter was on the ceiling and the windows. Back outside, Lyle and Eric seemed to be distraught as they told the police that they had been at the movies, and when they came home, they found their parents in pools of blood. Lyle and Eric were taken to the police station in attempts to get a better account of what had happened. Eric was interviewed first. He seemed very fidgety when he told the officers that he had been at the movies. He said that after the movie, they were going to go drinking, but he had forgotten his fake ID. So they went back to the house to fetch it, and that is when they stumbled upon the horrific scene. When Lyle was interviewed, he was asked who he thought would have had a motive to kill their father. Lyle, as well as Eric, theorized that it was probably an unsavory character Jose worked with, and that it was probably a mob hit. One of the names the boys mentioned was Noel Bloom. Noel was president of Live Entertainment. He preceded Jose in that job and did have mafia connections. Lowell didn't end up being a suspect for very long. He had a pretty good alibi and was quickly ruled out. Lyle and Eric stayed at their tennis coach's house that night, and the next day Lyle went back to the house, which was still an active crime scene, to get some clothes and a few other things. When Lyle asked the police on scene if he could not only get some clothes, but his and Eric's tennis rackets, which were in the room where their parents were murdered, the police looked at this as a cold act and began to look at the boys in a new light. 8 days after the murders, a memorial service was held at the Princeton University Chapel, with Lyle reading from a letter he had received from his father. I believe that both you and Eric can make a difference. I believe you will. I encourage you not to select the easy road. I encourage you to walk the road with honor, regardless of the consequences, and to challenge yourself to excellence. The police kept investigating Jose's work life. They discovered that he'd yell and scream at people and wasn't very pleasant to work with. People disliked working with Jose so much that many seemed pleased that he was gone. It was also discovered that Jose had bought a pornographic film operation from a man that had connections to the mafia in New York, New Jersey area. Police tracked down the man in a hospital in Newark. The man admitted to having connections to the mob, but said that they would have never made a hit so messy. He also said that they never would have killed the wife, and he had no beef with Jose. In the months after the killings, the brothers began to spend extravagantly. They bought $50,000 worth of Rolexes, Lyle bought a $65,000 Porsche Carrera, and Eric bought a Jeep. Lyle bought Chuck Spring Street Cafe, which was a buffalo wing restaurant in Princeton, New Jersey, for $500,000. Eric hired a full-time tennis coach for $60,000 a year and competed in a series of tournaments in Israel. They also chose to live in adjoining condominiums in nearby Marina del Rey, as well as dined expensively and went on overseas trips to the Caribbean and London. In all, the brothers spent over $1 million of their inheritance in the first 6 months following their parents' murders. Police also found out something else that Lyle had done that was suspicious in their eyes. Within 2 weeks of the murders, Lyle hired computer expert Howard Witkin to see if he could retrieve 4 files from his father's computer labeled Menendez, Will, Lyle, and Eric. Whitkins told Lyle the information under those labels had been destroyed. Lyle had allegedly told Whitkins that was very good, and that he wanted to make sure the information was not in fact there and couldn't be recovered by someone actively trying to recover the information. As the investigation continued, the police began to hone their sights on the brothers because of the obvious financial motive. In an attempt to get a confession from Eric, the police arranged for his friend Craig Signorelli to wear a wire during lunch with Eric at a local restaurant. But when Signorelli asked Eric whether he had killed his parents, Eric denied it. Months went by and the case grew cold until a woman named Judalyn Smith came forward to police. She said that she was a girlfriend of psychologist Jeremy Oziel. She said she broke up with Oziel and didn't like him anymore. She also told the police that when she was with Oziel, he said that the brothers had confessed to the parents' murder and that their confessions were on tape. Eric was having a tough time with what he and his brother had done and was the first one that went to Oziel and confessed, much to Lyle's dismay. Smith also told police that Eric and Lyle had went and purchased the guns in San Diego. Police went to every store in San Diego that sold guns. The second store that detectives went to was called the Big Five. On the ledger of the people that bought guns, the name Donovan Goodrow stood out to investigators. Donovan Goodrow was Lyle's friend from Princeton. He was interviewed and quickly ruled out as the person that purchased the guns because he had been back east at the time. Police had learned that Goodrow had lost his ID or it was stolen. The last place he had seen it was in Lyle's dorm room. On March 8, 1990, Lyle and his friends had left his home and were on their way to lunch in the Jeep when police pulled him over and arrested him.
Today at approximately 1:20 p.m., Beverly Hills police detectives arrested Joseph Lyle Menendez, 22, for the August murders of his mother and father, Maria Louise Kitty Menendez and Jose Enrique Menendez. His brother, Eric Galen Menendez, 19, also wanted for the same crimes, is being sought and is believed to be out of the country.
Eric turned himself in 3 days later after returning to Los Angeles from Israel and was taken into custody at the tarmac of LAX. Both were held without bail and kept separate from each other. Eric had hired lawyer Robert Shapiro, and yes, that's the same Robert Shapiro that would go on to be a part of O.J. Simpson's Dream Team. Shapiro is the one that helped Eric surrender to police. On March 26, 1990, Lyle and Eric were arraigned for the murders of their parents. Judge Judith Stein read off the charges against the brothers and said that if they were found guilty, the charges could result in death. Lyle's attorney Gerald Shaliff and Eric's attorney Robert Shapiro told the court that they needed additional time to prepare their argument that the therapist-patient privilege was violated by the seizure of therapy records and audio tapes from Dr. Oziel. Judge James L. Brock ruled that the recorded conversations between the brothers and Oziel were admissible evidence since Oziel stated that Lyle allegedly threatened him and violated doctor-patient privilege. The ruling was appealed, after which the proceedings were delayed for 2 years. The Supreme Court of California ruled in August 1992 that most of the tapes were admissible, with the exception of the tape on which Eric was recorded discussing the murders. In December of 1992, a Los Angeles County grand jury issued indictments charging the brothers with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Lyle and Eric spent 3 years in the Los Angeles County Men's Jail, awaiting for the trials to begin. The brothers were segregated from other prisoners and housed in separate cells in a section that also housed high-profile inmates such as Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, and O.J. Simpson. During this time, Eric was allegedly suicidal and received Xanax. He also was visited by a priest and began to reveal for the first time some of the traumas he allegedly suffered during his childhood. Then he began weekly therapy sessions with Harvard-trained psychiatrist Dr. William Vickery. Lyle spent a great deal of time on the phone to the manager of Mr. Buffalo's, often which caused other prisoners to complain about the number and length of his telephone calls. Shortly after, the sheriff's deputies found Lyle's ankle chains almost cut through, along with a 17-page letter from Lyle to Eric. In the letter, Lyle tells Eric that he would never testify against him and gives advice that Lyle believes Jose would have given him. I am not an ordinary person. I do not say things in terms of manslaughter and life terms. I see only win, loss, honor, and dishonor. Dad is watching, and I will not disappoint him a second time or Mom by giving up and having their deaths be in vain. In Eric's cell, notes were found describing plans to travel to South America and then to the Middle East, along with the drawing of a building with stairwells and doors.
California, a jury hears opening statements today in the trial of two Beverly Hills brothers accused of murdering their wealthy parents.
On July 20th, 1993, Lyle and Eric's trial was held at the Los Angeles County Superior Court with Judge Stanley Weisberg presiding. In 1992, Weisberg had presided over the first Rodney King trial, which had resulted in the deadly Los Angeles riots after 4 Los Angeles Police Department officers were acquitted. The brothers' trial began with 2 separate juries. The brothers had originally pled not guilty, but now they were claiming self-defense. Lyle had a new lawyer, Jill Lansing. Lansing had just left the Los Angeles County Public Defender's office to open her own private practice. She was not comfortable in high-profile, media-intensive cases. Eric had a new lawyer as well, Leslie Abrams, who is the granddaughter of an international ladies' garment workers union organizer and also a passionate opponent of the death penalty. At that time, she only had lost 1 client to a death sentence. Eric's case would be her 15th high-profile murder case. Leslie Abramson hired Los Angeles County Public Defender Marsha Morrissey to assist her. Morrissey had just finished defending Laney Greenberger in the Cotton Club slaying case. Lansing hired Michael Burt, who was the head trial attorney in the San Francisco Public Defender's Office and an expert in death penalty law. Abramson and Lansing had consulted lawyer and child rights advocate Paul Mones, who had written a book titled When a Child Kills, Abused Children Who Kill Their Parents. The book outlines how attorneys can successfully defend children accused of killing their parents, and it is based on Mones' research, which shows that kids who kill their parents are usually peaceful and have parents that are very private and secretive. Mones suggests that these children have a low self-opinion of themselves and react only after suffering abuse, silently, usually after years of trying unsuccessfully to please their parents. When these children fight back, they strike when their abuser is vulnerable, and when they do, it is usually characterized by overkill. Instead of 1 bullet being fired at the abuser, the child will shoot the abuser over and over again. Mones believes that when a parent is murdered, it is their fault. In following Mones' advice, Abramson and Lansing dressed the brothers in boyish sweaters, sport shirts, and khaki pants in attempts to make them appear more like boys than men. Deputy District Attorney Pamela Vazanik, who worked in the organized crime sector, was first up for the prosecution's opening statement. Vazanik laid out the case against Lyle. She described the brutality of the murders.
Mr. Menendez had 5 shotgun wounds, the major one being an entrance wound to the back of Mr. Menendez's head. Mrs. Menendez had 10 separate shotgun wounds, some of which could have been caused by the same blast.
She also outlined the brothers' spending spree. She then described how Lyle had hired bodyguards after the murders because he feared for his own safety. Vazanik told the jury that, from what we know now, this hint that his own life might have been in danger because of his parents' killing was a lie. She reminded the jury that if Lyle and Eric could lie so frequently and in such detail to avoid being caught, they could also lie about child abuse to avoid death sentences.
It will become apparent that this murder was unlawful, unjustified, and wholly premeditated, and that it was accomplished through a conspiracy into which Lyle Menendez entered with his brother, and that but for a few mistakes they made, this was almost the perfect murder.